Two brothers return to their hometown after serving in the military, only to find that everything has changed. A violent gang has taken over, terrorizing the community with threats and brute force. Unable to stand by, the brothers vow to fight back, uncover the secrets behind the chaos, and protect the place they call home. The streets of Greenwood were quiet, save for the faint hum of passing cars and the occasional bark of a distant dog. The city, once known for its rich cultural history, had become a place of tension, a battleground between progress and prejudice. Marcus Turner, tall and broad-shouldered, walked side by side with his younger brother Malik, their strides naturally synchronized, a habit formed from years of moving as a unit both in life and in combat. It was a crisp autumn evening, and the brothers had decided to take a late-night walk after hitting the gym. Malik carried a duffel bag slung over one shoulder, while Marcus's hands were tucked into the pockets of his hoodie. The faint glow of streetlights flickered over their path, casting long shadows that danced on the cracked pavement. "You really dragged me out here for this?" Malik muttered, shifting the bag on his shoulder. "Man, I had plans tonight. You know, real plans." Marcus smirked, his deep voice calm and measured. "Yeah, like watching reruns of old fights and talking to your non-existent girlfriend on the phone." "Ha ha." Malik rolled his eyes. "You know, you're not as funny as you think you are, Marcus." "Maybe not, but I'm still smarter than you," Marcus retorted. Despite the banter, there was an unspoken tension in the air, one that neither brother could ignore. The city had been gripped by unease for weeks now. Stories circulated about a gang of bald, tattooed men who called themselves Iron Fangs. They roamed the neighborhoods, targeting black residents in brutal, calculated attacks. The reports were chilling: beatings, vandalized homes, businesses forced to shut down. And the worst part, the whispers of a bounty system paying these men to drive people out of Greenwood. For Marcus and Malik, Greenwood wasn't just a city. It was home, a place their parents had raised them, filled with memories of running through the streets as kids, playing basketball at the community park, and eating soul food at Mrs. Clara's diner. They returned home after years as elite military commandos in the military. This should have been a time of reconnection, a chance to rediscover their roots. But what they found instead was fear, a fear that hung over the city like a storm cloud. "You think the bounty rumors are true?" Malik asked, his voice quieter now, the usual bravado fading. Marcus nodded grimly. "Vanessa wouldn't have called me if it wasn't. She said it's organized, bigger than we thought." Detective Vanessa Carter was an old friend of the family, one of the few black officers in the Greenwood Police Department. She'd been the one to warn Marcus about what was happening, urging him to keep his head down. But keeping his head down wasn't exactly Marcus's style, and Malik was even less likely to back away from a fight. Before Malik could respond, a faint noise caught both their attention, a low murmur of voices, followed by the scrape of boots on asphalt. Instinctively, the brothers slowed their pace, their senses sharpening. Years of military training kicked in, and they moved without a word, scanning the area with the precision of seasoned soldiers. "You hear that?" Marcus asked, his tone clipped and focused. "Yeah," Malik replied, his eyes narrowing as he peered into the shadows ahead. "We've got company." From an alleyway just ahead, a group of men emerged. There were 5 of them, their bald heads glinting under the streetlights, tattoos snaking across their arms and necks like battle scars. At the center stood the tallest of the group, a man with a coiled snake tattoo stretching across his throat, its fangs poised just below his jawline. He grinned as he stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with malice. "Well, look at what we've got here," the leader drawled, his voice dripping with venom. 2 for the price of 1. The gang fanned out, cutting off the brothers' path. The air grew heavier, the tension crackling like a live wire. Malik and Marcus exchanged a glance, a silent conversation born from years of shared battles. "Guess we're not making it home on time," Marcus muttered under his breath. "Wouldn't want it any other way," Malik replied, his fists clenching as he took a step forward. The leader smirked, clearly amused by their defiance. "You boys lost or something. This ain't your part of town." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Last I checked, Greenwood's my home." The leader chuckled darkly. "Not anymore. See, we're tacking it back, cleaning it up. And you too." He gestured at them with a dismissive wave. "You're on borrowed time." Malik tilted his head, his gaze steady but laced with fire. Let me guess, big guy here's the brains of the operation. Or are you just the one who counts to 10 for the rest of them? The gang's laughter faltered, replaced by scowls. The leader's grin disappeared, his eyes narrowing. Funny guy, huh? You won't be laughing when we're done with you. The man to his right, a wiry figure with flames tattooed up his arms, sneered. Yeah, maybe you're used to being stepped on. That's what your kind does best, right? Malik's jaw tightened, but Marcus shot out an arm, barring his brother from moving forward. Don't, Marcus said quietly. His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. Malik obeyed, though his fists remained clenched. Marcus turned his attention back to the leader, his tone icy. You think you're in charge here? You've got numbers, you've got tattoos, but you don't have what we have. The leader barked a laugh. Oh yeah? And what's that? Training, discipline, and a hell of a lot more fight than you'll ever have, Marcus replied. For a moment the gang hesitated. The confidence in Marcus's voice, the calm fire in his eyes, it was enough to give even the most hardened thug pause. But the leader quickly shook it off, his pride too bruised to back down. Big talk, he spat. Let's see if you can back it up. The night air felt heavier as Marcus and Malak Turner faced down the gang of 5 men, their bald heads and tattoos glinting under the dim streetlights. The leader of the gang, Travis, sneered at the brothers, his snake tattoo seeming to coil tighter around his neck as his grin widened. Malek cracked his knuckles, his eyes fixed on the group. You're about to find out just how tough. The gang didn't wait for an invitation. With a barked order from Travis, they surged forward, fists raised and ready to strike. The first attacker, a wiry man with flames tattooed up his arms, lunged at Malik, throwing a wild punch aimed at his jaw. Malik ducked, his movements quick and precise, and countered with a sharp uppercut to the man's ribs. The gang member staggered back, gasping for breath, but Malak didn't let up. He followed with a spinning elbow to the side of the man's head, dropping him to the ground. Meanwhile, Marcus intercepted 2 attackers at once. The first swung a crowbar, but Marcus sidestepped the blow with practiced ease, grabbing the man's wrist and twisting it sharply. The crowbar clattered to the pavement as the man let out a howl of pain. Marcus followed up with a brutal knee to his stomach, sending him crumpling to the ground. The second attacker came at Marcus from the side, aiming a heavy punch at his ribs. Marcus blocked it with his forearm and retaliated with a quick jab to the man's throat, causing him to stumble back, clutching his neck. Travis watched from a few steps away, his grin fading as he realized his crew wasn't faring as well as he'd expected. What are you idiots doing? Take them down. One of the gang members, a burly man with a chain wrapped around his fist, charged at Malik, swinging the chain in a wide arc. Malak dodged backward, the chain barely missing his face. He stepped inside the man's reach, grabbing his wrist and twisting it sharply. The chain fell to the ground, and Malik used the opening to deliver a vicious headbutt, followed by a knee to the man's gut. The burly man collapsed, groaning. Come on, Malik shouted, his voice filled with adrenaline. Is this all you've got? The gang regrouped, circling the brothers like predators. Travis stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. You're not so tough. Let's see how you handle this. Travis lunged at Marcus, his fists swinging in quick, calculated strikes. Marcus blocked the first 2 punches but took a glancing hit to his shoulder, the impact making him stagger slightly. He recovered quickly, ducking under Travis's next swing and landing a solid punch to his ribs. Travis growled, grabbing Marcus by the collar and trying to wrestle him to the ground. Marcus countered by planting his feet and twisting, breaking Travis's grip before driving an elbow into his chest. On the other side of the fight, Malik faced off against the last standing gang member, a wiry man with quick reflexes. The man finted left, then aimed a kick at Malik's side, but Malik caught his leg mid-air and swept his other leg out from under him. The man hit the pavement hard, groaning as he tried to get up. Travis, now alone and breathing heavily, glared at the brothers. His pride wouldn't let him back down, but his confidence was clearly shaken. You think this is over? He spat, wiping blood from his mouth. You're on the list now. You hear me? You're done. Marcus stepped forward, his eyes cold and steady. What list? What are you talking about? Travis sneered but said nothing, backing away slowly. Malak, still brimming with adrenaline, took a step forward. I don't think you understand, he growled. You don't get to walk away until you tell us what we want to know. Travis chuckled darkly, despite the blood on his lips. You've got no idea what you're messing with. This whole city's changing, and people like you. You're just in the way. The sound of distant sirens broke the tension. Travis's grin returned as he looked over Marcus's shoulder. Looks like your babysitters are on the way. Marcus turned to glance at the flashing blue and red lights growing brighter down the street. When he turned back, Travis was already retreating into the shadows, his crew dragging themselves to their feet and limping after him. This ain't over, Turner, Travis called over his shoulder. Not by a long shot. The brothers stood in the middle of the street, catching their breath as the gang disappeared into the night. Marcus glanced at Malik, who was wiping blood from a small cut on his lip. You good? Marcus asked. Malik nodded, his smirk returning. Better than those guys. What the hell was he talking about? A list. Marcus's expression darkened. I don't know, but we're going to find out. The sirens grew louder, and moments later, a squad car pulled up. Detective Vanessa Carter stepped out, her sharp eyes scanning the scene. She took in the bruised brothers and the bloodstains on the pavement before sighing heavily. What did I tell you two about keeping your heads down? She asked, crossing her arms. They started it, Malik said, grinning despite himself. Vanessa rolled her eyes. I'm serious. These guys aren't just thugs. They're part of something bigger. Marcus nodded. We figured that out. Travis said something about a list. Vanessa's expression hardened. She motioned for the officers to secure the scene before pulling Marcus and Malik aside. It's true, she said quietly. There's a bounty system in place. Someone's paying these gangs to target people, mostly black residents. They want to push them out of Greenwood. Who? Marcus asked, his voice low and steady. Vanessa hesitated, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. The name that keeps coming up is Jonathan Harrington. He's a big-shot real estate developer. If he's behind this, he's using these gangs to scare people out so he can buy up the land. Marcus's jaw tightened. You're sure? Vanessa nodded. I've been digging into it, but Harrington's careful. He's got money, connections, and lawyers. If we're going to take him down, we need solid proof. She handed Marcus a slip of paper with an address scrawled on it. This is where one of their hangouts is. If you want answers, that's your best shot. But don't do anything stupid. These guys play dirty. Marcus took the paper, his expression unreadable. Thanks, Vanessa, we'll handle it. Vanessa sighed, stepping back. Just be careful. I can't lose you two to this. As the brothers walked away from the flashing lights, Malak glanced at Marcus. What's the plan? Marcus looked at the address in his hand, his mind already working. We go to the bar. We find someone who knows what Harrington's planning, and we make them talk. The Rusty Cage wasn't much to look at, a grimy, dimly lit dive bar tucked into the forgotten edges of Greenwood. Its windows were tinted and streaked with grime, and its neon sign buzzed faintly, casting a flickering red glow on the cracked sidewalk. The place reeked of stale beer and sweat, a haven for those looking to avoid attention. Marcus and Malek stood across the street in the shadows, their eyes locked on the bar's entrance. They had been here for a few minutes, watching the comings and goings. Men with shaved heads and tattoos filtered in and out, their behavior cocky and territorial. This was Iron Fang's territory, and the brothers knew it. Subtle, Malek muttered, his voice low. Real classy spot for a criminal empire. Marcus didn't reply immediately. His sharp gaze scanned the building, taking in every detail: the placement of a small security camera above the door, the layout of the alley to the left, and the heavy-set man leaning against the wall just inside the entrance, clearly acting as a bouncer. This isn't about classy, Marcus finally said. This is about intimidation. They don't need to hide because no one here's going to challenge them. Malik adjusted his jacket and rolled his shoulders. Well, I guess that's about to change. Marcus gave him a warning glance. We're not here to pick a fight, Malik. This is Raycon. Get in, find someone who knows something about Harrington, and get out. Malik smirked. Yeah, sure, Raycon. until someone says the wrong thing. Focus, Marcus snapped, his tone sharper than usual. This isn't just about us. It's about the people these guys have been terrorizing. We can't screw this up. Malik held up his hands in mock surrender. All right, let's do it your way. The brothers crossed the street, their movements deliberate but casual. They pushed open the bar's heavy door, and the smell of smoke and alcohol hit them like a wall. The room was dimly lit, the glow of neon beer signs reflecting off sticky tabletops. A jukebox hummed faintly in the corner, playing an old rock song that no one seemed to be paying attention to. The patrons were mostly men, hunched over their drinks or playing pool at a table near the back. Marcus and Malik walked to a corner table, their boots sticking slightly to the floor as they moved. They sat with their backs to the wall, giving them a clear view of the room. A tired-looking waitress approached, her expression guarded. "What'll it be?" she asked, her tone flat. "2 beers, Marcus replied, keeping his voice neutral. She nodded and disappeared behind the bar. Malik leaned across the table, his voice low. "This place is a dump." "That's the point," Marcus said. His eyes scanned the room, landing briefly on a group of men at the pool table. 2 of them were from the gang that had confronted them earlier in the week. One of them, a wiry guy with a flame tattoo winding up his arm, seemed to be leading the conversation. The others laughed at something he said, their voices rough and mocking. Malik followed Marcus's gaze. "Snake Guy's friends," he murmured. "Think he's the one we need?" Marcus nodded subtly. "Could be. But we wait. Let them come to us." The waitress returned with their beers, slamming them onto the table a little harder than necessary. Malik slid her some crumpled bills, giving her a polite nod. She said nothing, walking away without a second glance. After a few minutes, one of the men at the pool table glanced over at Marcus and Malik, his expression curious. He leaned toward his friends, muttered something, and they all turned to look at the brothers. Malik raised an eyebrow but didn't move. "Here we go," Marcus murmured under his breath. The wiry man with the flame tattoo pushed away from the table, grabbing his drink and swaggering over to where the brothers sat. He stopped a few feet from their table, looking them up and down with a smirk. "Don't see you 2 around here often," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "New in town?" Marcus met his gaze, his expression unreadable, not new, just stopping by for a drink. The man chuckled, taking a swig of his beer. "Funny, I don't remember this bar being a tourist spot." Malik leaned back in his chair, his smirk matching the man's. "What can I say? We like the ambience." The man's smile faded slightly, and his tone turned colder. "You know, this ain't the kind of place you just stroll into without knowing someone." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "We're here now. Is that going to be a problem?" The man's eyes narrowed, and for a moment it looked like he might say something more. But instead, he snorted and turned back to his table. "You 2 have fun," he said over his shoulder, his tone mocking. "Don't get too comfortable." As the man returned to the pool table, Marcus and Malik exchanged a glance. Marcus nodded slightly, signaling Malik to follow his lead. They waited a few minutes longer, then got up and moved casually toward the back of the bar, where a hallway led to the restrooms and a door marked employees only. They didn't have to wait long before the wiry man with the flame tattoo appeared again, heading toward the back with a drink in his hand. Marcus and Malik followed, their footsteps quiet. The man pushed through the door, disappearing into what looked like a storage room. Marcus motioned for Malik to stay back while he eased the door open. Inside, the man was leaning against a stack of crates, texting on his phone. Marcus stepped inside, and Malik followed, shutting the door behind them. The man looked up, startled. "What the?" Marcus didn't give him a chance to finish. He closed the distance in 2 quick strides, grabbing the man by the front of his shirt and slamming him against the wall. Malik stood by the door, his arms crossed, blocking the exit. "We're going to make this simple," Marcus said, his voice low and deadly. "You're going to tell us everything you know about Harrington, who he's paying, what he's planning, and how many crews he's got working for him." The man tried to squirm free, but Marcus's grip was like iron. "I don't know what you're talking about," he protested, his voice trembling. Malik snorted. "Wrong answer." The man's eyes darted between them, panic starting to set in. Look, I don't know much, all right? I just do what I'm told. Marcus tightened his grip. Then tell us who's giving the orders. The man hesitated, but the look in Marcus's eyes left no room for argument. All right, he blurted. Harrington's got a meeting tomorrow night. Some warehouse on 15th Street. That's all I know, I swear. Marcus studied him for a moment, then released his grip, letting the man slide to the floor. If you're lying, Marcus said coldly, we'll be back. And next time we won't be so polite. Malik stepped forward, his smirk returning. You might want to rethink your career choices. The man said nothing, his eyes wide with fear as the brothers walked out of the room. Back outside, the cool night air was a welcome relief after the stifling heat of the bar. Marcus pulled out his phone and texted Vanessa, letting her know about the warehouse. So, what's the plan? Malik asked as they walked back to their car. Marcus's expression was grim. We hit the warehouse tomorrow night. If Harrington's there, we'll get the evidence we need to bring him down. And if it's a trap? Malik asked. Marcus glanced at him. Then we fight our way out, like always. The night air was sharp as Marcus and Malik Turner approached the warehouse on 15th Street. The building loomed in the shadows, a monolith of corrugated steel and cracked windows. A faint light glowed from within, spilling through the grime-streaked panes and creating ghostly reflections on the pavement. The surrounding area was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that made every sound, every crunch of gravel underfoot feel amplified. The brothers crouched behind a stack of shipping crates across the street, their eyes fixed on the building. Marcus held up a pair of binoculars, scanning the area with military precision. He spotted a few figures near the entrance, armed men, pacing casually but alert. A black SUV was parked nearby, its tinted windows gleaming under the dim light of a street lamp. Two at the door, armed, Marcus muttered, and the SUV. Could be Harrington inside. Malik adjusted the strap of his duffel bag, which held their carefully selected tools for the mission. Think he's already here? Maybe, Marcus replied. But we're not taking chances. We need to confirm he's inside before we make a move. Malik peered at the warehouse, his brow furrowing. This doesn't feel right. If Harrington's as careful as Vanessa says, why would he show up to a place like this? He's confident, Marcus said, lowering the binoculars. Or arrogant. Either way, we're going to use it against him. The brothers circled the warehouse, sticking to the shadows as they scouted the perimeter. They found a side entrance, partially hidden behind a stack of rusting metal barrels. It was locked, but the padlock was old and rusted, easy to break with the right tools. Marcus motioned for Malik to follow him back to their vantage point. Side door's our best bet, Marcus said. We can bypass the guards at the front and get inside without being seen. Malik smirked. And once we're in, what's the play? Marcus's expression was grim. We confirm Harrington's here, get whatever evidence we can, and get out. If things go south, we adapt. Adapt, Malik echoed, shaking his head with a faint grin. That's your go-to, for we'll wing it. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. It's worked so far. They waited until the guards at the entrance were distracted, one of them lighting a cigarette, the other scrolling through his phone. Moving quickly and silently, the brothers crossed the street and slipped behind the barrels near the side door. Malik pulled a crowbar from his duffel bag and wedged it into the lock. With a sharp twist, the padlock snapped, and Marcus carefully eased the door open. Inside, the warehouse was dimly lit, the air thick with the smell of oil and damp concrete. The sound of muffled voices echoed from somewhere deeper in the building. Marcus and Malik moved carefully, their steps silent against the cold floor. The layout was straightforward. Rows of stacked crates and pallets created narrow pathways, leading toward an open area at the center of the warehouse. As they approached, the voices grew louder. Marcus signaled for Malik to stop, pressing a finger to his lips. They crouched behind a large stack of crates and peered into the open space. In the center of the warehouse, a group of men stood around a table. Most of them were clearly gang members, tattooed, rough-looking, and armed. But one man stood out. He was well-dressed in a tailored gray suit, his silver hair combed neatly back. His demeanor was calm, almost bored, as he listened to the gang leader's report. "That's him," Marcus whispered. "Harrington." Malik's jaw tightened as he studied the man. Doesn't look like much. Don't underestimate him, Marcus replied. Guys like him don't get their hands dirty. That's why they hire people like these. At the table, Harrington raised a hand, silencing the gang leader mid-sentence. Spare me the excuses, Harrington said, his voice sharp but measured. I don't care about your setbacks. What I care about are results. The properties on Jefferson Street, are they cleared or not? The gang leader hesitated, then nodded. Mostly, yeah. A few holdouts, but we'll take care of them. Harrington sighed, adjusting the cuff of his suit. You'll take care of them by the end of the week, or I'll find someone who will. I'm not paying you to drag your feet. Malik clenched his fists, his anger barely contained. This bastard's running the whole operation like a business deal. Marcus placed a hand on Malik's shoulder, grounding him. Stay focused. We need evidence. Marcus pulled out a small recording device and aimed it toward the group, capturing Harrington's words. As he adjusted the device, he caught a faint glint of light from the corner of his eye, a security camera mounted high on the wall. His stomach sank. Malik, Marcus whispered. We've been made. Before Malik could respond, an alarm blared, the shrill sound cutting through the warehouse. The men at the table froze for a moment, then sprang into action. Harrington barked an order to the gang members. Find them. Now. Time to adapt. Malik shouted as he grabbed a metal pipe from the ground. The brothers bolted from their hiding spot as the gang members spread out, weapons drawn. Marcus led the way, navigating through the maze of crates with the precision of a seasoned soldier. Behind them, heavy footsteps and shouted orders echoed through the warehouse. A gang member appeared at the end of the aisle, his gun raised. Marcus ducked behind a crate as the man fired, the bullet splintering the wood. Malik charged forward, swinging the pipe and knocking the gun out of the man's hand before delivering a swift kick to his chest. Move, Marcus called, and Malik fell in beside him. They turned a corner and nearly ran into another gang member. Marcus reacted instantly, landing a solid punch to the man's jaw and disarming him before tossing the gun aside. Malik followed up with a blow to the man's knee, dropping him to the ground. The brothers fought their way through the warehouse, taking down gang members with brutal efficiency. But the odds were against them. More men poured into the building, cutting off escape routes and forcing Marcus and Malik into a corner near the rear exit. We're outnumbered, Malik said, breathing hard. Got any more of those genius plans? Marcus scanned the area, his mind racing. We need to create a distraction. Something big enough to draw them away. Malik glanced at a stack of barrels marked flammable. A grin spread across his face. Big enough for you? Marcus followed his gaze and nodded. Do it. Malik grabbed a crowbar and pried the lid off one of the barrels, spilling its contents onto the floor. He pulled a lighter from his pocket and flicked it on, tossing it into the spreading liquid. Flames erupted, climbing high and fast. The fire spread quickly, filling the warehouse with heat and smoke. The gang members shouted in panic, some retreating while others tried to contain the blaze. Using the chaos to their advantage, Marcus and Malik made their way to the rear exit. They burst into the night, the cool air a stark contrast to the inferno behind them. The sound of sirens in the distance signaled the arrival of the police. Marcus glanced at Malik as they ran toward the alley where they'd parked. You good? Malik grinned, his face streaked with soot. Always. As they reached their car, Marcus pulled out the recording device and held it up. We got what we came for. Now, it's Vanessa's turn. The journey to save their town isn't over for the two brothers. What awaits them next? Find out in the next episode. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.